Thank you for turning to 10, your news leader. 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti continues right now.
Welcome back. My guest in studio is East Providence Mayor Bob DaSilva. Came overseas to be with us. Thank you, Mayor. Always good to see you. You were in with me last year. Were you in post-bridge or before the bridge? That's how we measure time now in Rhode Island.
I think it was post-bridge.
It was post-bridge.
Yeah.
And that was it was a mess. Now things have gotten better. Would you agree?
Much better, yes.
Okay, but where do we go from here? What are your concerns? How is your city doing? Where are we?
I think we're doing much better. We're not out of the woods completely. When you think about the first few weeks and days following the closure, that was complete chaos. And once they open up the third lanes, things have changed dramatically. You know, we've found that a lot of the restaurants, when I speak to different business owners,
yes,
a lot of the restaurants are feeling like they bounced back to almost pre-bridge closure. They feel that way. Additionally, we're seeing that our meals tax revenue has increased dramatically. That's an indicator that shows that people are going out and supporting our local businesses. We have a very resilient community. Our residents are supporting local, and I think other people from the East Bay choosing to visit East Providence businesses.
So you said your tax receipts are actually up?
So yeah, so meals tax, it's a state thing. It's a state thing, but the cities get that money.
Yeah.
Our meals tax is up $84,000. If you compare 2024 through November to 2023 through November, we're up $84,000.
Even over pre-bridge.
Yes,
I think you
right.
made a little news here.
Yes, we're actually generating more revenue when you look at the meals tax. Compared to pre-bridge.
Well, why do you suppose that is? Have people gotten used to it now? We're going to live with it. We know the new bridge is coming at some point. Right. This is really good news for you because for a while you were on the ropes. You were asking for all kinds of grant money, emergency money. You got a little bit of it.
There were a lot of businesses that were adversely impacted, and we're not saying all businesses are completely out of the woods, but I will tell you that since they opened up the third lane, traffic in and out of the city is pretty smooth. The one problem you do see happening is when you have an accident, a broken down vehicle, or during traditional rush hour.
Yep.
You know, people sometimes have short-term memories. They don't remember what it was even before this project started. We had backups on that bridge all the time. Part of the reason DOT was replacing the bridge and making some modifications was to deal with that consistent backup. That's why they're putting in a new off-ramp to Waterfront Drive in East Providence. So there's a lot of things that people forget. This is how it used to be. We're not completely out of the woods, but we are in a much better position today.
Just a footnote. Now, we tape close to 11 o'clock on a Friday morning. You came over the bridge to see me. How was it?
Not a problem.
What time did you cross it? About 10 o'clock this morning?
About 10 o'clock this morning, not a problem. Like I said, coming over into Providence from East Providence, not an issue. The biggest problem we're finding from talking to residents and what I find myself, traditional rush hour when you're coming back to East Providence, because don't forget, you have 95 south and north, converging at 195, 4 lanes trying to converge into 3, so you get a backup there. But other times of the day, non-rush hour times of the day, you can get through without an issue.
Now, we just went through a week of aggravation over maybe they're going to stop the funding, maybe the $220 million is not going to come in, and then there was a larger issue of Donald Trump, President Trump, freezing all the funding. Almost.
Yes.
Where do you stand with that? What have your fellow? A lot of them, boy, they really were worked up over this last week. Are you worked up?
Well, it's concerning because you're talking about funding that supports public safety. We just put on 12 new firefighters with a SAFER grant, federal grant. And I was looking at this situation, not understanding the directive from the federal government.
Okay.
Does this mean now that I have to lay off these 12 firefighters? What does that mean for us? You know, when you look at federal funds, it impacts everyone's life at all different ways because there's money that filters in to support local municipalities from the federal government, and people sometimes are not aware that this money goes to road improvements. It goes to infrastructure improvements. It goes to supporting housing. You know, we have East Providence Housing Authority that relies on federal funding. So these type of edicts from the federal government without clarification, it does raise concern. It makes you nervous. It makes you wonder, oh my goodness, what am I going to do next? You know?
That was the larger freeze. And let me just ask you this. You're a mayor. Your city council votes to appropriate spending, but you execute it.
That's right.
And you have a right to review it. You want to make sure there's no waste, fraud, and abuse. Isn't that what Donald Trump is doing? He says, I want to look at it before I send it out. I think the merits.
I honestly, no, look, I think as President of the United States, it's his duty to review the spending. However, the money gets appropriated by Congress. The appropriation process is by Congress.
Right.
The award has been made a lot of times for these grants. For instance, the bridge money, that's been awarded. That money's been awarded.
Yes.
Now to pull that away or to freeze it without clear indication of exactly what it is you're doing, it causes people concern because we want to get this bridge done.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the President of the United States wants to see this bridge completed and safely put in place so that we continue commerce between, Rhode
Bay,
Island,
West Bay,
Rhode Island and Massachusetts and everybody else.
Yep.
And it's a public safety issue too. I mean, you want to be able to have a clear path going forward.
Right, but again, on the merits, if he says, I just got in, I want to see that there's no waste, fraud, and abuse, and if it's spending consistent with what he believes to be his mandate having been elected, isn't that the executive's authority and responsibility?
Well,
on the merits.
I understand that there's some responsibility, but there's also some guiding laws and other constitutional requirements that need to be adhered to. If Congress has earmarked money through a process, and now you're relying on that money to get something done, I think there's federal law that prohibits that. You have a duty to make sure the money gets spent and executed. It's not your duty to stop it if it's been already appropriated. Now Congress can come back and say, hey, we want to take that money back. I guess maybe they can do that. I'm not sure. I'm not a congressman, but I will say that our congressional delegation, I thank them for working to try to make sure we get some clarity on what's going on.
We may get clarity Monday, and in fact, the federal court judge, Judge McConnell, I believe, in Providence, who's going to hear one of the cases that's been filed, has indicated that he appears to go along with the plaintiffs, which would be Attorney General Nerona telling Donald Trump this is not your lane. And there's other districts that have this. Before I go to break, just narrowly on this notion that the $220 million in bridge funding might be held up. That was the first issue we had. DOT tells me, no, it's their understanding that only has to do with transportation projects covered under the Green New Deal. Have you?
I've heard.
You've heard it on my
same.
radio show.
Yes, I've heard that. I've heard that conversation, and I believe that that's true. I believe that the bridge money has already been earmarked. It's there for this project. I don't think it would be wise for anyone to remove that money from the project. It's that important for our state and for the region and for public safety and for everything else that goes on in commerce. So I would think that the president, once he does his review, make the message be clearer to the community. Right. Let people know exactly what it is you're doing. Okay,
stay with me. We're going to have another segment, Mayor DaSilva. We'll talk about, he's got a bit of a controversial initiative to make sure that DEI stays in East Providence. We'll get into that next. Mayor Bob DaSilva from East Providence is with me for one more segment. You made a little news last week insisting that DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is going to stay part of your agenda, even as the White House pushes back and says, no, it's wrong.
Yep. Well, no, we put out a proclamation the other day during our MLK celebration to ensure that our residents understand that our administration, our city, is a place that welcomes people of all backgrounds, all ethnicities. And we have had ordinances and affirmative action plans in place since the early 1970s. So we're not rolling that back. We're going to continue that. We believe it makes it for a better community, a welcoming community. That's what we want to see go forward.
You've heard the argument against it. Now, we're going through this with the airline crash in Washington. The president's making an issue of this. And just put that aside. People say, I want the best doctor. I want the best pilot. Don't you want the best, regardless of what ethnicity they belong to?
Absolutely.
Square the two.
Well, I will. We want the best. We want everyone to have the opportunity to have a seat at the table. And the reality is, if you look back at government and private businesses going back into the 60s and 70s and early 80s, it was all one homogenous workforce, for the most part. Mm-hmm. Through different advocacies, through different ordinances and laws and initiatives, you started to open up the workforce to bring in more diversity. And I think when you are a government of the people representing a very diverse community, there's great value to residents knowing that there's people representing them, working for them, working on their behalf, that resemble their backgrounds. Now, it doesn't mean we're not getting the best qualified. We're just giving everybody a seat at the table. And you know what? I take offense to the fact that when people talk about the DEI issue had something to do with this horrible crash, And when you say you want the brightest and the smartest, what does that mean? Are you saying that people of color, people of diverse backgrounds, they can't be the brightest and smartest? That's not what I look at DEI as. I look at DEI as an opportunity to give everybody a seat at the table so they all have an opportunity.
Right. By the way, the president's getting hammered for this. I assume you're talking about him because he's the one that opened it up last week. And he is saying that unqualified people are in jobs that absolutely necessitate the brightest minds. Now, whether his timing may not have been correct, but that's what he's saying. Do you take exception to that? And by the way, you're of Portuguese descent.
That's correct.
If I'm living in your city, do I care that you're of Portuguese or any other descent? If you're the mayor, you're the mayor.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what matters. I think what matters is when you have a disenfranchised community. And if you look at the history of the United States, don't forget this is a country that had Jim Crow laws. This is a country that you had to fight for your right to vote. This is a country where there were red line districts, and if you were a person of color, you couldn't get loans. These things all happened, not in the too far distant past, and we put these laws in place over the years to help diversify the federal and state and municipal workforces, but we're still looking for the best qualified. We're just giving everyone an opportunity to come before us in an interview to be chosen for a position in city government to represent the community that lives there.
You're saying everybody gets a turn at bat, and if you could swing the bat, you swing it, and if you don't, you don't?
That's it. And I feel that we've done a great job hiring some very well-qualified people, and we've been fortunate that we do an effort to go out and recruit diverse people. And we go into in different communities. We try to get diversification in our police force. When you have a community made up of Latinos, Portuguese, Cape Verdeans, people of color, it's nice to know that there's people that look like you patrolling the streets and policing your community, or firefighters are going to come in and save your life if you need it, or even in City Hall, someone who looks like me. So to me, I believe the diversity is very, very important.
Listen, you've laid it out. This is how you feel. I guess in the future, somebody might say, listen, it's time for a Latino. I want a Latino, or I want somebody, and then that would replace you.
Listen, if
would you feel the same if they say I want something else?
Listen, I answer to the people. Anyone can come in and replace somebody. You're not guaranteed being here. I'm fortunate that I do speak the language. I speak Portuguese. We have a very vibrant Portuguese community, Cape Verdean community.
That helps you.
Of course, that helps me.
Does.
Just like you go to other communities where the majority Italian, and they happen to have an Italian mayor or something, because they connect with that.
Right.
So that segment of the community connects with that individual, gets them elected.
Okay.
It's important.
I have 2 minutes, so let's do a quick lightning round. If ICE comes into East Providence and says, I'm making a raid, there's a Venezuelan gang member, we're going to grab him, I'd like your police department to watch the street for us. Would you cooperate?
We are 100% on board with getting violent, illegal criminals off our streets, 100%.
Okay.
We will be, if you come in and you're looking to get a violent criminal off the streets, yes. What we don't want to be involved in is doing a immigration sweep of people who are working in their workplace and they don't have a criminal background, and these people are just in violation of the civil rules of immigration. That's what I don't want to see our police department doing. But you come in with a warrant, you're looking for or even a detention order for a violent, illegal criminal who's in our city, we're 100% on board.
Now, you were telling me in the commercial break you have a little bit of you have a interesting view. Your wife is from the Dominican Republic originally.
Yes.
And she came legally, by the way.
Did.
You told me
she
that.
Did.
Is she a little worried for the community at large? What's the feeling?
I'll tell you what's happening. With these type of initiatives, they start out with, we're going to go after the violent criminals, right? But the reality is, they're sweeping up other people who may not be criminals.
Yeah.
And my wife goes to the bodegas on Broad Street, right? She's Dominican. She could be in there one day, they're locking up an illegal criminal, and she happens to be there. She doesn't carry her naturalization papers with her. Is she going to get swept up into this whole situation also? The reality is, you need to have a well-defined plan and communicate that to the people. This is how we're going to handle this situation. What I don't want to see are innocent people who may be in violation of the civil immigration laws or may not even be in violation. They could be here totally legal,
Right.
and they get dragged into an ICE detention center. We don't want that.
Right. The way it was explained is if we're going after a criminal and another illegal person happens to be in the room, ICE is going to grab them too because they don't belong here. It's unfortunate they were next to the bad guy. Mayor, let's hold it there. I think we covered a lot of ground. I'll have you on the radio. We'll continue. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Gene.
East Providence Mayor Bob DaSilva. Thanks for joining us. That's 10 News Conference, your #1 longest running political show. Make sure you listen to me on the radio every weekday. Turn to 10.com also has all of our interviews, and I'll see you on the news at 6 next week.